Intel is a government-backed meme stock. If you happen to buy Intel about 26 years ago, you'd just now be breaking even. Minus inflation, obviously you're losing a lot of money on that investment. It's been quite the ride for investors in Intel over the last 2 decades. But if we do zoom in as of the last year or so, it's been pretty strong, up 100 to 150%. There you go. But you can see this after hours or pre-market move over here. Yeah, kind of ugly. So this video isn't gonna dive deep into the Intel earnings and necessarily dive into why traders are selling off Intel so aggressively, but more so to hit on the overarching theme that Intel is literally a meme stock right now. Now that could come off as facetious because, you know, it's a $270 billion company. It owns like 76% of the laptop CPU market share. So obviously they have a lot of things going for them. They're not quite a movie theater company or a brick and mortar video game retailer. But let's just talk about two of the dynamics that they have with the US government and Nvidia, because it's honestly pretty comical. So the first aspect of this whole dynamic is the US government. And if you remember, not too long ago now, August of last year, Intel announced that there will be an $8.9 billion investment from the US government. Trump is trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States of America, and to do that, you need to get some of their domestic chip producers like Intel to get some skin in this AI game, because TSM is absolutely taking over. And you can see the stock jumped on that news. It was up, 20 to 40% following that investment. And remember these investments for later, because we're going to get to their cash flow and a little bit of their financial statements, just to peek at, you know, like how much money are they making or how much money are they losing. So it certainly wouldn't be a meme stock if they were making a lot of money. And let me remind you of some of the darker days that we've seen. Liquidation day, the great Trump tariffs, the scary tariffs that everybody absolutely shit their pants over. The stock market had a heart attack because global trade was on the precipice of collapse. And if we see that, then all these super integrated supply chains like we see with Nvidia that works with hundreds of different companies, businesses, providing all sorts of components that they need to build out these massive supercomputers. The point is, the tariffs were all a scare tactic to bring manufacturing to America. Intel was definitely on the benefiting side of that. They not only received a $10 billion investment from the United States, but you also have the Trump administration saying, hey guys, if you're not manufacturing chips on US soil, then we're going to charge you like 30 to 40 to 50% on every single chip that you make. And so that's exactly what we saw some of these big manufacturing companies do. TSMC, which keep in mind is Nvidia's largest partner. They're literally the only manufacturing company in the world that can make Nvidia's Blackwell chips, that can make their next generation chips in Vera Rubin. So if they're coming over to the United States, they obviously see some urgency to make that decision and get here so they don't lose out on those juicy margins manufacturing AI chips for Nvidia. And as a result, as a flow down of that, you can see this facility is absolutely massive, providing over 40,000 jobs to American workers. Again, this is just to reinforce what Trump's ideal world looked like, to make America great again. And Intel was a massive beneficiary of it. They were literally injected with $10 billion of cash in a desperate attempt by the US government to make them relevant and compete in the chip manufacturing space. Think about it from the US government's perspective. Keeping it simple, if we put it in context of being a business owner, you don't want to rely on one supplier for your entire product, because, you know, if something gets in the way, you get in a little tussle with that business owner and he doesn't want to provide you his services or products anymore, then you're pretty much screwed. Now, ironically, that's what we just talked about with Nvidia and TSMC. Nvidia solely relies on them for their next generation technologies and manufacturing capabilities. But if the US government loses Nvidia, in other words, if Nvidia goes down because there's some major geopolitical tensions between China and Taiwan and TSM isn't able to ship their chips over to Nvidia, then Nvidia stock go down. And let's just say if Nvidia stock goes down, then probably the whole economy crumbles. Remember, capital expenditures by big companies on AI infrastructure, data center spending is making up more GDP growth than you, the consumer, spending your money on whatever you want to buy, on the things you need, on the things you want to do. The point is, if this spending goes away, then we're in trouble. And Nvidia is the recipient of most of this spending. And one last thing on the US government bailout. If you take a look at this chart, what do you notice? Yes, the United States is non-existent here. 8%. This is a clear attempt to bail out a failing US chip manufacturer. And I say failing lightly. A lot of companies would like to be worth $275 to $300 billion. A lot of CEOs would like to be as successful as Intel with their businesses. But the point is, on the global scale of companies that are dominating chip manufacturing, Intel is certainly not one of them right now, at least when it comes to advanced manufacturing capabilities. That's what's becoming the gold standard. And that's why you're seeing a company like TSM straight up over the past 3 years, because they're absolutely dominating the playing field. Now, to add fuel to this bailout fire, we also have Nvidia, the largest company in the world. So you have the US, the most powerful and wealthy nation in the world, and then you have Nvidia, the most powerful and wealthy company in the world, both coming together to give Intel money for similar but different reason. The US knows to stay competitive in global manufacturing, they need a domestic supplier. That's going to be Intel in their eyes. Nvidia knows that they can't be solely reliant on TSM for their chip manufacturing. And let's be honest, Trump was probably in Jensen's ear saying, hey, dude, we gotta help these guys out. You know what's gonna happen if we don't. And so this move by Nvidia, yeah, it might have been forced by the US government, but at the same time, it's a hedge. Jensen Huang knows that companies that are bailed out by the US government tend to do pretty well over the coming years, decades, centuries. We saw with MP Materials, the US was incredibly reliant on other countries for rare earth metals. China and Russia have a lot of them, so obviously as adversaries of the United States, you need to find a better supplier. Some of the biggest companies in their respective industries, your GMs in automotive, your Bank of America and JP Morgan in banking, Lockheed Martin in defense, these companies were all pretty much bailed out in one way or another throughout history by the US government. Look at them today. They've become extremely successful. In JP Morgan and Lockheed Martin's case, very successful in some of the biggest companies in their industries. So it helps to have the US government on your side, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Intel. Now, Nvidia might also have some extra little juice, another motive to get in on this deal. They have so much cash on their hands, literally piles of money waiting to be thrown at dying meme chip manufacturers bailed out by the US government. They can take advantage of this. Intel owns a lot of the CPU markets that exist across many different technologies. We got desktop computers, laptop computers, your traditional legacy data center server racks. Oh God, those things are dinosaurs now. But either way, a direct competitor with Nvidia is AMD. And AMD has been taking a lot of market share from Intel. So if Nvidia can get in on the action, maybe help Intel take some of that back, help smush AMD a little bit longer, it's another competitive advantage. So Jensen Huang gets the best of really three worlds. An investment into a company that is actively being bailed out by the US government, literally guaranteed to succeed because the US needs it for competition on a global scale in chip manufacturing. Two, you get to help out a direct competitor to AMD in some of these markets. Again, this dynamic is shifting. Most of the competition comes in the AI market, obviously. But who knows, maybe they can revolutionize this industry as well. It seems like that's all Nvidia is doing nowadays. And three, it's a hedge. If Intel somehow does pull off the impossible and starts manufacturing high-level AI chip technology like TSM, and you never know, now Nvidia has some skin in the game, and who knows? Now this begs the question, is this capitalism? Well, no, not really. I mean, Intel is factually getting money from the US government to compete in a competitive marketplace. And Taiwan is a capitalistic free market economy. So yeah, this isn't capitalism. It's more like communism, really just feeding money to the company that's going to suit the best interests of your own country. But at the end of the day, the race to artificial intelligence is so incredibly important. But say if it does come to a point where you're bottlenecked by geopolitical tensions between China and Taiwan, TSM isn't able to get their chips over to Nvidia, Nvidia goes down, that cripples the entire economy period. So you could argue it's kind of a force moved by the US government, show that they can compete and show some strength in the manufacturing global landscape. Again, is it fair to other manufacturing companies trying to compete in this space? Obviously not, but life isn't fair. And the business world certainly is a lot less fair than that. I guess one of the biggest takeaways is when you hear or see that a company is getting an injection of money from the US government, you should probably bet on their side. Even if you don't believe in their ability to come back, if you have the backing of the United States of America and their endless supply of money, then it might make sense to have some exposure. But at this point, we're seeing some red flags with this company. I mean, we're down over 12% now. And I don't want to bore you with the details, but let's just look at their financial statement, their 10K that just came out this morning. I'm just going to control F through this and give you some of the key points because it's honestly kind of funny. Half their strategy is just talking about how GPUs are really necessary in this world as generative AI workloads increase and AI technologies are adopted across industry. Like, yeah, we get it. We know this at this point. I don't think anybody has a question about whether AI is this leading technology and going to transform the world as we know it. Obviously, that's where the world is going. I think people are more concerned about your particular strategy to get back into the race. And that's revitalizing this x86 ecosystem, their flagship product. There's a good chance your laptop or home computer uses that chip. But again, that's not really getting you back into the game, at least how the United States envisioned it. Now we can see some quick financials. Net income. I mean, hey, at least they're not losing money. They're basically break even right now. This company just made $26 million in a year. A company that's worth over $250 billion. Okay? For a company up 200 to 300%, actively being bailed out by the US government, the most powerful country in the world, and actively being bailed out by the most powerful company in the world, and Nvidia, you would expect some of these numbers, this revenue walk to, jump a little bit higher, get that growth going. Gross profit, it's just not really jumping like we'd expect it to. Again, this industry takes time to get back into. So hopefully these investments from Nvidia in the United States will allow them to somehow get back into this AI arms race. And this is where traders might have at least some very slight sigh of relief. Cash has jumped massively. Where do you think that came from? That came from financing activities. What does that mean? Well, that means Nvidia and the US government. They gave us a lot of money. They're going to help us reinvigorate and transform our culture to get back into this race. Nobody really cares about the other stuff. You need to use this money that you were given, that you were literally given in a capitalistic economy. You need to make the most out of it because this stuff is rare. And when it happens, like we saw with JP Morgan, like we saw with Lockheed Martin, like we saw with GM, when it happens, you can become buddy-buddy and all of a sudden things start going your way, deals start being flowed down to you, and maybe, just maybe, the investment will pay off for Nvidia and the US government. But for now, I'd argue that Intel is the largest meme stock to ever exist and a complete government bailout, a moonshot to bring manufacturing capacity to the United States, create a lot of jobs. That's great. That's guaranteed. And Nvidia's hedging their bet as well as hoping to get exposure to this moonshot, and probably was somewhat forced by the US government because we can't have the AI economy collapse or else everybody else is going to suffer. Oh, and one last thing, it's not about Intel, although it can be. I created this trading software, ideally to be the easiest trading software to use in the world. It doesn't even have to be for trading. It can be for long-term investments, swing trading, day trading, whatever you want it to be. But essentially it allows you to backtest your strategies, test out new ones, see what signals are actively triggering in the market that typically result in good returns. I'm trying to help the average person use data that Wall Street is using to take advantage of you. I want to level the playing field for people that are involved. I've lost a lot of money trading. I've made a lot of money trading. But at the end of the day, I want to help you be better. And that's simply just using the data that's already there, just packaged in a way that's user-friendly and easy to understand. You don't have to deal with all the math and statistics. It's done for you behind the scenes. It's a pretty little interface. Check it out, www.marketspredictor.com. If it sucks, let me know. If you like it, Also, let me know. I'd really appreciate it. If it can just help a few people make better decisions, that's enough for me to be happy. So I hope this helps. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.